I have a pleasure to introduce Jan Friedrich Richter, who is an old friend of Niguliste Museum, currently working at the Berlin State Museum, and he has been, of course, very active in research of Baltic Sea region since years already. He has edited and written monographs on Klaus Berg and Hans Brüggemann, but also he has contributed to the most important oeuvre of Corpus der mittelalterlichen Skulptur und Wandmalerei in the Baltic, the northern part of Germany. So he is also a co-curator of this exhibition and of this project. So we are very interested to hear his talk, because his subject is also very intriguing for us here in Estonia, because he's asking if Tallinn was one of the biggest art centers in the Baltic Sea region at the eve of Reformation. So please, Jan.
Yeah, Krista, thank you very much for the introduction. Dear friends, dear colleagues, dear audience, as already mentioned, our research project, Michel Sittow in the North, Altarpieces in Dialogue, started with the Holy Kinship altarpiece in Bowness Parish Church. This altarpiece is probably one of the highest quality which survived from medieval times in Sweden, and it's definitely one of the biggest problems of Swedish art history. As already mentioned several times, it was thought it had been made somewhere in the Netherlands or in the workshop of Tilman Riemenschneider in Würzburg, or in the workshop of Ludwig Jupan in Marburg, or somewhere in Lübeck, and it was even thought it could be an Italian work. Meanwhile, we are convinced that this work was made in Tallinn, which is still somehow surprising, because Tallinn was never seen as an independent art center. Here we go, okay. If we take a look at the surviving altarpieces here in town, we can find significant imports. Some from Lübeck, just like the high altarpiece here in Niguliste Church, made by Hermann Rode in 1481, or the high altarpiece for Holy Ghost Church, made by Bernd Notke in Stockholm at around 1483. Apart from imports from Lübeck, we can find also imports from the Netherlands, just like the altarpiece from St. Catherine's Monastery, made by the Bruchmaster of the St. Lucy legend before 1493. Now it works. Or the already shown Holy Kinship altarpiece, which came from an unknown provenience here in Tallinn, made in Brussels around 1500. And obviously, we also can find imports from the state of the Teutonic Order, as you can see from this figure of Dorothy seen here on the left side, which can easily be compared to the altarpiece from Teenkitten, now in the collection of Malbork Museum, made somewhere in the state of the Teutonic Order around 1504. What is missing from all these examples is an altarpiece which was definitely made in Tallinn at that time. The explanation for this is probably the exposed position of the city in the east. Tallinn was the most important trading city in this area and formed a hub to the Russian market in Novgorod. But apart from that, the surroundings were too sparsely populated for Tallinn to have formed an art center of its own. First, over the course of the 15th century, we can see more and more merchants migrating to Tallinn, what finally led to a change on the art market around 1500, when several artists from abroad came to the city. And it's interesting to see that all those artists came exactly from those regions where the altarpieces formerly were imported from. Probably best known, and the earliest of all those artists was Michel Sittow, who returned to his hometown in 1506. Trained in the workshop of Hans Memling in Bruges, he had made a big career as court artist for Isabella of Castile in Spain. His Netherlandish experience was something that was bound to attract a lot of interest in the north. As you take a look at this map, you will get an idea about the amount of imported Netherlandish altarpieces to Scandinavia and the Baltics starting from the 1480s. Until then, as already mentioned by Merike, Lübeck was the most important art center for this region. But with increasing competition of Netherlandish traders, the cultural orientation changed towards the end of the century. Netherlandish altarpieces were more and more imported, and the Lübeck art production came under pressure. This is probably one explanation for the major change of style which can be seen in the Lübeck art production at the beginning of the 16th century. Starting with Claus Berg, journeymen from Lübeck began to move to southern Germany, from where they brought back a completely new kind of art with strongly moving, emotionally charged figures. And this style became very fashionable in Lübeck, and it made the art production competitive again. And it's interesting to see that one of the artists who was probably working in this new style was moving to Tallinn in 1507. A woodcarver called Jürgen Dreyer, Merike already mentioned him. Unfortunately, we do not know what exactly he has done, because there is no work which could be connected directly to his name. But it seems to be possible to get an idea of it, as archival sources indicate that it is very likely that he was a brother of the famous Lübeck woodcarver Benedikt Dreyer. Benedikt Dreyer was one of the most important artists who was working in this new southern German influenced style. Here I show you one of his early works, a Last Judgment altarpiece made for the parish church of Birket on Sealand in Denmark, now in the collection of the National Museum in Copenhagen, made in Lübeck around 1513. This is a good example to explain the new level of style, the changes in it, because if you take a look at the figures in the wings, they were made by an unknown journeyman who was educated in Lübeck in the last quarter of the 15th century. Rigid figures almost exclusively shown in frontal view. If you take a look at the central scene in the shrine with a depiction of the Last Judgment, you can truly see a big difference. The figures are moving as the foldings of the garments do, and it seems to be as if the artists behind it, Benedikt Dreyer, wanted to depict the emotion which is connected to this scene, to the Last Judgment. The quality of Dreyer's work can be shown by this figure of St. Michael from another Last Judgment altarpiece made a little bit later for the parish church of Lendersdorf, south of Cologne. south of Cologne. I will talk about this altarpiece a little bit later again. But there were not only artists from the Netherlands or from Lübeck which were moving to Tallinn, but also artists from the state of the Teutonic Order. In 1510, we can see the stonemason Clemens Pahle, Clemens the Poland, moving to Tallinn. And this is really surprising because Tallinn, as already mentioned by Merike, had a long tradition in stonemason works, while the architecture in the state of the Teutonic Order was almost exclusively made from brick. And stonemason works, just like the inner portal of the western porch of Fromborg Cathedral made at the end of the 14th century, are really extremely rare. Whatever the reason was, we can see Clemens Pahle working in Tallinn at one of the most prominent projects at the beginning of the 16th century, the construction of St. Mary's Chapel as an annex to the parish church of St. Olaus. Here I show you a view from the southeast side. Most of you know the situation, where you can see the chapel in front of the building, which looks more like a second church in its dimensions. The construction was ordered by the church warden Hans Pavels, a German immigrant from the second generation to Tallinn, and his position also allowed him to order the construction of a cenotaph for himself, which should be situated, you can see it here in the slide, on the eastern wall of the chapel. This probably gave the reason to order some more stonemasons to Tallinn, who in this case did not come from the state of the Teutonic Order, but from Münster in Westphalia. Merike already showed you the timeline. In 1514-15, we can see the stonemasons Bernd Wold, Hinrich van der Borch, and Gerd Konink working in Tallinn at the construction. The leadership for the construction of the chapel was given to Bernd Wold, who probably was a son of the Münster stonemason Johann Wold, the most prominent and influential artist of the second half of the 15th century in Münster, and the quality of his works can be shown by this life-size figure of St. Mary for Lübeck Cathedral made around 1460. In Tallinn, the stonemasons created a cenotaph which looks more like an altarpiece. Down on the ground you can see a niche in the dimensions of an altar mensa in which a skeleton and an inscription remembers the founder. Above there are two rows of 8 reliefs with passion scenes surrounding an empty niche in which there have maybe a Calvary group or a figure of St. Mary to whom the chapel was dedicated. Stone altarpieces, stone cenotaphs are extremely rare in Scandinavia and in the Baltics, but they were very, very common in Münster. As you can see from this example here, an altarpiece from Cloister Winnenberg made by another pupil from Johann Wold, Heinrich Brabender, the most famous stonemason in in Münster, working at the beginning of the 16th century, now in Münster Cathedral. In Tallinn, the stonemasons were using a similar model, but not only the model, but also the details, as you can see in comparison of these both canopies in Tallinn and in Münster. What has changed in Tallinn, what definitely has changed in Tallinn is the style. Typical for works in Münster is a restless style of small-scale foldings, as you can see here on the right side, while in Tallinn the garments show generously sized areas with very, very few foldings. This style is typical for this southern German manner, which I already described above, which was very fashionable in Lübeck, as you can see in comparison to another figure group from the already shown altarpiece from Lendersdorf, which was made by Benedikt Dreyer. And if we take a look at the Bollnäs altarpiece, we can exactly find the same style which was also used in Tallinn for the epitaph, for the cenotaph for Hans Pabels. And it's not only the same style, but also the same types of faces which were used there. And this gave us a very, very important hint to say that despite of the style of the paintings, the Bollnäs altarpiece as a whole was made here in Tallinn. The art which was produced here at the beginning of the 16th century was obviously exported in a wider radius, which is marked by the cities of Bollnäs, Helsinki, and Riga as the key points. In Riga, we can find huge renovation works at the city castle in the beginning of the 16th century after a long-lasting civil war between the city on the one hand and the master of the Livonian order, which was Walter von Plettenberg at that time, on the other hand. Here I show you a bird's view from the castle from the second half of the 18th century, where you can see the situation with the two courts, the first, the two yards, the first yard and the main courtyard, and at that time the entrance between both yards was overbuilt by a new entrance building. The actual situation before the renovation of the castle, the actual renovation of the castle can be seen on the small photo on the left side, where the remaining rests of the original conception, the original construction, was overwhelmed by a classicistical canopy. Here you can see the actual situation where the reliefs were replaced by modern copies. And if we take a closer look to the remaining rests, we can see that this assembly of reliefs obviously is not the original one. On the left side you can see a figure of St. Mary under a canopy. On the right side the portrait of Walter von Plettenberg. Below there are two inscriptions, partly in Latin, partly in Low German, which are showing almost the same text. And if you are looking at the coat of arms beside them and above St. Mary in the canopy, they are showing the same coats of arms twice. So it's obvious that this can't be the original conception. But if we are looking at the ground plan, we can see that the passage between both yards was overwhelmed by an unusual elaborate vaulting at the beginning of the 16th century as a result of those renovation works. And we know from archival sources that the stone masons who were responsible for these works were ordered from Tallinn to come to Riga to do that. So from my point of view, it's very probable that these both reliefs were fixed over both entrances, maybe the figure of St. Mary over the entrance from the first yard and the portrait of Walter von Plettenberg over the entrance from the main courtyard. And if we take again a look at the types of faces, we will find exactly the same ones in Riga, which were used in Bollnäs. And if you look at the figures of St. Mary, we can even think about the same artist behind them. The model which was used for the depiction of St. Mary in Riga is something what was created in the surroundings of the workshop of Tilman Riemenschneider in the last quarter of the 15th century, and it was often used by those Lübeck woodcarvers working in this new southern German influenced style, and it was also used by Benedict Dreyer for the root screen of St. Mary's Church, made between 1513 and 20, unfortunately destroyed in the Second World War. But there are some old pictures remaining, so we can compare both figures. And I have to say that from all those models, from all those examples where the southern German model were used by woodcarvers from Lübeck, this figure from Benedict Dreyer is the one who is the most closest related to the figure in Riga. So this again gives a hint that it was probably Jürgen Dreyer who transferred the new style from Lübeck to Tallinn, and who also has taken some of those models with himself. Going back to Bollnäs, we can find exactly the same situation. We will find definitely using an influence or a using of southern models, just like this comparison between the both figures from Riemenschneider and from Bollnäs can show. But in Bollnäs, as already mentioned by Mireke, we can find some more things. I think we could discuss from where the model of the Holy Kinship altarpiece from Brussels came, but it's important to say that this one is a very, very, very rare model. There are only 3 pieces which survived, which are showing exactly the same model. And Bollnäs and Tallinn are really closely connected, so I'm definitely of the opinion that the artists working here in Tallinn have used this Brussels altarpiece as a direct model for creating the Bollnäs altarpiece. The areas marked in orange below are showing those figures which were replaced in the in the middle of the 17th century. But as you can see here in this comparison, the iconography, and not only the iconography, but also the architecture is almost identical. But if we take a closer look, we can see some difference on the other hand. In Bollnäs, the forms are more sharply executed. The quality of carvings is definitely higher. There is a change between the proportions of architecture and figures. And of course, already mentioned, the artists have chosen a completely different style. So for me, it seems to be as if the artists working here were of the opinion, we will use this piece as a model, but we will do it better. And it's the same thing, the same idea when you take a look at the back wall, because the artists here in Tallinn for the Bollnäs altarpiece have chosen a construction which is very, very common here in Scandinavia and in the Baltic area. The frame is constructed like a groove bar frame. And I really much hope that this is a correct term in English. In German, you would say a Nutleistenrahmen, where the boards of the back wall are fixed. They are not fixed, they are mounted into a groove, so they are free to move in this groove. While on the other hand, at the Bollnäs altarpiece, typical for the Brussels altarpiece, typical for Netherlandish works, the boards of the back wall are nailed unmovable to the frame. And in case of climatic changes, this provides the danger that the boards can crack, what is not the case at the Bollnäs construction, because the boards can move. So, there are a few other works which survived from the workshops working here in Tallinn at the beginning of the 16th century, and I very much hope that we will find the time to discuss about all those pieces in front of them in the exhibition. but I think that the result will be in every case the same. At the beginning of the 16th century, there are several artists moving to Tallinn, and they created a kind of workshop, maybe better said, a kind of collaboration. Because there was no local tradition of producing artworks, they were completely free to find their own solutions. And for me, it seems to be as if they have chosen the best of all developments of Northern European art at the beginning of the 16th century to create something completely new. Influenced by Netherlandish paintings, by Netherlandish altarpieces, combined with a style, a southern influenced style, which was highly fashionable in Lübeck at that time. They were using this special kind of construction which has a long tradition in Scandinavia, and all of this combined with a Westphalian tradition of stonemason works. Thank you very much.